Everyone, and welcome to Exhibition Hajj. What we've done is we've set up an exhibition to do with Hajj, and we've got some very interesting items to show you. Have a look here. I'll explain what everything is. So over here we've got, on the right hand side, we've got one of the earliest photos related to do with Hajj. That's the original print of that photo when it was taken, and that's in 1899. The kiswa there is leaving Damascus. The kiswa used to be produced mainly in Egypt before 1927, when it was started being produced in Saudi Arabia, and it was mainly produced in Egypt, but it was also produced in Sudan, and it was also produced in Damascus as well. So over there it's leaving Damascus in that photo there. This here is one of the earliest drawings in a Western newspaper. So the first time the Western media covered the Hajj. This is the original newspaper of that. This is Harper's Weekly in 1865. If you read about what they're doing, obviously they don't have much of an idea about what they're writing about, because if you look at the hair, everyone's got a mohawk and they're bald on the side. So obviously they don't know much about what we do. They probably just thought similar to Buddhism, we cut the sides off or something. So some of the things are quite funny. If you notice Safa at the bottom, Mount Safa, which is very small now when we go on Hajj or Umrah, it's huge. Right, so that's probably true, because a lot of people started going when travel became much easier. A lot of people started going, so Safa has probably shrunk over the years. In fact, it has. And you've got some Medina there as well, and you've got the Kaaba, obviously, which looks very similar to what we've got today. So if you want to come forward and have a look, you can have a look at that. So if we come this way now, you've got the New York Times in 1930. They did this print in 1930, showing the Kaaba in the 1920s. The report here is by a person called Aldon Rutter. We've got his book over there in the middle. We'll have a look at that later. The report, his book is 2 volumes. It's a very detailed book. He even went inside the Kaaba. He describes what the color of the kiswa was. He describes what the steps were like. He describes everything. Now, but there's a doubt whether he truly converted to Islam, because here he's called an infidel, and he didn't seem to mind that, so we're not sure. And the whole discussion at the beginning of his book, which basically talks about how whether he was a Muslim or not, we're not sure about that, but inshallah he was. Over here we've got the first movie ever produced on Hajj, which was in 1932. The first movie commissioned by King Abdulaziz, the founder of Saudi Arabia. We couldn't find the movie. We've looked everywhere. We can't find the movie. So what we did is we included the original leaflet that came with it. In those times, nobody had television, so you had to go to the cinema to watch a film. So you'd go to the cinema and you'd be given this leaflet, this exact leaflet that's here now. Over here we've got the declaration as Caliph. So when the Ottoman Empire fell, the King Hussein, who was the king of the Hijazi kingdom, he declared himself as Khalifa. That was short-lived, but that's the stamps on which he did that declaration. They're the original stamps on which he did that declaration. There's an Ottoman stamp from the Ottoman times when the Ottomans used to rule over the Hijaz, over Mecca and Medina. And that's a stamp from there. It shows the Hijaz railway in there as well, because they made a railway going from Turkey to Mecca. And over there we've got 1935 Riyal. The interesting history about the reason we included the Riyal, we also have a Pakistani note on its way. It's still in transit, because this is one of the first exhibitions we're doing. The Hajj used to have its own currency. It didn't used to have like you would go and do exchange now. You would exchange into Hajj currency. So on the Pakistani note, for example, it says for Hajj use only. And then you had the normal Riyal currency, and then Riyals for Hajj use only as well. So here we've got, so if we come around this way, so you give the people at the back a chance, come close, we can be close, it's okay. Here we've got 1908, the Illustrated London News. This is one of the first pictures that was ever published in a Western newspaper in 1908. The first, one of the, probably the first published in a Western newspaper in 1908. And here we've got a picture from the 1950s of the Kaaba in a Turkish newspaper. So if we move this way now, we've got a Hajj pass from Yemen. And before, when people used to go, they didn't used to have passports. So what they would have is they would have a Hajj pass. So that's a Hajj pass from Yemen, a Hajj passport for Egypt, third class one and a second class one. And these are some of the earliest photographs by Muhammad Ali Effendi in 1904 to 1908 of the Kaaba. He did extensive report on Hajj. Then these are probably, in fact, they are the earliest photographs of Hajj ever printed. They're in a book. Obviously, the actual originals are worth a lot of money, so we don't have them. But what we do have is we have that. It's got pictures of the Kaaba in there. It's got pictures of Medina in there. But I thought it would be interesting to open it on the page to do with Mina and Arafat, to show how hard it used to be to do Hajj back then. We've got over here an account about a person who converted in Malaysia called David Chale. This is an account of his Hajj his conversion and then going on Hajj after he converted. It's written by non-Muslim Owen Rutter, and who wrote about it after he told him about it. And we come on to the modern era over here. So this is the modern era. What most of you will recognize, 1977 Geographical magazine about the Hajj, and then you got 1950s. You've got the videos which we know that came out, and we started watching the videos before we went on Hajj in VCR videos. Obviously now you've got YouTube and DVD or whatever you have now, and then that's that. So over here, one thing that we've included is some history to show you. For example, Bulugh al-Maram is a book by Hafiz ibn Hajar, who we're going to talk about over there. Here his book is open on Kitab al-Hajj. This is an 1883 print of that book. Then we've got Hadith ibn Hisham, which is written about the year 800 something, and that's a 1911 print of that. And we've got Tafsir Jalalain by Imam Suyuti, which was this one is printed in 1950. And over here we've got a book called Dalil Hajj. This was printed in 1960. This is probably one of the first books which included photographs on Hajj. Now if you have any guide, it will show you this is Hajar al-Aswad, this is this. This was the first time anybody had the idea. So that's there as well. This is from what we believe is from inside the Kaaba. We're waiting for verification on it, but we believe it is from inside the Kaaba. And this here, as I said, the Kiswa factory started producing the Kiswa. The Kiswa factory made this piece in a similar fashion to how you see the writing on the Kaaba. They produced this and gave it as a gift to Sheikh Sudais, who gave it as a gift to Sheikh Shuaib, and then who gave it to us to show in our exhibition. Okay, so just to show you the kind of work that they do. Coming on over here, we've got a piece. This used to hang on the Roda of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Used to hang on his Roda about 30 years ago or so. And many of you who might have gone, especially the uncles here, you might remember looking through the railings and seeing this piece. So I don't know whether anybody does remember that. We did have somebody in one of our other exhibitions who said, yes, I remember that. I remember seeing it through the railings. Obviously, as younger people, I mean, I'm only 30, so I wouldn't remember it. This one, we're not sure what it is. We think it's from, we were told it's from inside the Kaaba, but we've got reason to believe now that this is from the Roda as well. This is from the Roda of the Prophet ﷺ as well. This was about 100 years ago. This was on the Roda of Rasulullah ﷺ. And this was about 80 years ago. This one was on the Roda of the Prophet ﷺ as well. Okay, and this was during the Ottoman times. These two were, and some of them are more recent. Okay. Now over here we've got a section called Heroes of Hajj. So you're going to like this one, inshallah. So if I start you off over here by a person called Ibn al-Mubarak. Ibn al-Mubarak, we've included him. He was a very early on scholar. Just to show you how early on he was one of the first students of Imam Abu Hanifa, and he was a student of Imam Sufyan al-Thawri. So just to give you an idea of how early on we're talking, this is the person we've got here. Now, the reason we included him is he used to take people on Hajj. He used to take people on Hajj every single year. But the way he used to do it, the way Hajj used to work then is that at the moment we pay for the flight, then we pay for the accommodation at the hotel, and then we pay for this and that, right? Back then it would be, if you're taking me on Hajj, I would give you all the money, right? Like over the top money. If anything was left, you would give it back to me, right? So people would come to Ibn al-Mubarak and they would say, here you go, here's the money for my Hajj. They would give it to him. When they would give it to him, he would basically take it from there. They're free to take, yeah. When he would take all of their money, he would put it in a bag and put their name on the top. Then he'd put it in a bag and they would go on Hajj together. On Hajj, he would go to Medina and he would say, what did your children say that you wanted from the joys of Medina? And he would buy everything for them that they said. Then they would go to Makkah and say, what did your children say they want from the joys of Makkah? And he would buy everything. And everywhere they stopped on the way, he would say the same thing and keep spending on them. And the people used to think, wow, the barakah in my money is going a really long way, isn't it? When he got back and when they used to get to their home, he used to pick up the bag they gave him initially and he used to give them all the money back. And say, I want the sawab, I want the reward for all of your Hajj. And he would pay for their Hajj. Right, and that's an example. Me anyway. I don't know whether Maulana might be able to correct me, but I haven't seen that in history anywhere, for anybody to be that generous and just take people on Hajj and just pay for their entire Hajj. And apart from that, obviously, he used to give 100,000 dirhams in charity. His students used to witness him giving 100,000 dirhams in charity every year as well. And we haven't included one story about when he didn't go on Hajj one year because he gave all of his money away, and somebody still saw him on Hajj. So how that happened, we don't know, but that's that. So coming on to Imam Bukhari, who isn't a stranger to anybody, and I think is widely accepted across the entire Sunni world. Everybody accepts Imam Bukhari, and his work is widely accepted by everybody, which shows the dedication of his work. Most people don't know that his journey to writing Sahih al-Bukhari took a pivotal moment when he went on Hajj, at the age of 16. Yeah, and similarly, if we go back to the teacher of Imam Ibn al-Mubarak, Imam Abu Hanifa, when he was very young, he went on Hajj as well. So the reason we included this is to show people that Hajj changes people. I think actually Imam Abu Hanifa might have gone on Umrah, but how going to that place changes people, right? And meeting the people there. So Imam Bukhari went there at the age of 16, and this completely changed. Obviously, he had the knowledge already he already had the knowledge that he had learnt, but he met the ulama, he saw the change of narrations of hadith, and he saw the need for the work that he did, and then he wrote that work as well. And we've included at the bottom, for example, many people don't know this, but actually we haven't included it in the story. Imam Bukhari was actually blind when he was younger, right? And his mother made so much dua for at the Hajj at the time. She made so much dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured that blindness. And Ibrahim alayhi salam came in her dream and said that wake up, Allah has accepted your dua. So it shows that the family was good. And then the fact that he went on at the Hajj at the age of 16, he was taken on Hajj. Obviously, he wouldn't have been able to afford it. His family took him on Hajj, and how that dedication from their family led to making such a great work now as well. And similarly with Imam Abu Hanifa, his father took him on Hajj, and it shows the family support that is so important when bringing up your children as well. So if we move now on to the one thing we'd include over here, Imam Bukhari, by the way, knew about 300,000 hadith, of which 100,000 was Sahih, and he only included 2,230 non-repeating hadith in Bukhari. Yeah, so that just shows his dedication. Only the creme de la creme did he include in his book. Robert of St. Albans, where's Tayyab? So a lot of people ask us, who was the first English person to convert to Islam? We don't know the answer to that because obviously it wouldn't be documented anywhere. A high profile case though would make it. So back in the year 1100s, in the 1100s, there was a person who was called Robert, and he came from a city of St. Albans. And what he did was he became a crusader, and he became a Knights Templar. Knights Templars were elite soldiers. They were generals. They used to call them armies within themselves, right? And they used to just be below the Pope because they were commissioned by the Pope, right? This guy, he went across to fight Salahuddin Ayyubi in Jerusalem. And when he was there to fight Salahuddin Ayyubi, he went there, he noticed that the Christians were the ones at the time who were being oppressive, and the Muslims were being oppressed. So he started looking into what Islam is. When he looked into what Islam was, he found it to be the truth. So he, in the high position he was in, he converted to Islam and joined Salahuddin Ayyubi. And together in the Battle of Hittin in 1875, together they won over Jerusalem. So from where he came to win to where, and we included him. I know it's not to do with Hajj, but it's to do with one of the harams, because Masjid al-Aqsa is one of our harams as well. Yeah, and in history though, when I was looking at history and everything, I couldn't find much reference to this guy. The only reference I could find was in a book that I managed to track down from the year 1200. It was written in Latin. I got it translated, and it was just full of curses for him. Well, it would be full of curses because it sent shockwaves through the Christian kingdoms at the time. When he converted, everyone was like, what? We look to you for the religion, and you convert to another religion? Yeah, so it was a big conversion. 2 years after converting, he died. We don't know whether he went on Hajj because Salahuddin Ayyubi did send a group on Hajj straight after the Battle of Hittin with his brother. We don't know whether he was part of that, but he was married to Salahuddin Ayyubi's niece. So if you guys want to just come way more forward and just come over here. so everybody can see. The next person we've included is Hafiz Ibn Hajar. Not many people know about who he is, but it links into, for example, we were talking about Imam Bukhari earlier, and the reason we've included him is, again, his journey starts on going on Umrah at a very young age. So at the age of 4, his mum and dad had passed away. Both of them had passed away at the age of 4. He was a complete orphan by then. At the age of 5, his stepmom put him in a madrasa. And when he was in a madrasa, he excelled very fast. By the age of 9, he was a hafiz. So it shows the level of genius to be a hafiz at the age of 9, right? And the thing with that, though, is he memorized Surah Maryam. So to give you a reference of which one is Surah Maryam, it's the one that comes after Surah Kaf, the one we read on Friday. Surah Maryam is quite long. He memorized it in one day. Right? So he had an excellent memory. Imam Zahabi had just come in the time before him, and Ibn Hajar made the dua when he drank Zamzam, because as we know, the dua of Zamzam, the dua that you drink while drinking Zamzam is accepted. Yeah. So because of that he made the dua, "Oh Allah, make my memory equal to the memory of Imam Zahabi." From there, he went on to write Fath al-Bari, which is a book like 14 volumes. It's a very long book, right? And that's one of his 170 books on hadith, which is an explanation of Imam Bukhari's Sahih al-Bukhari. And it's to date, it's the best explanation that's come. And I think it's taught in pretty much every institution that to do with knowledge as well. Now, the thing about him was he went on Hajj when he was 25 with his wife. What we included is a story about where when he went he was on a ship once, and there was a shipwreck. And the ship started sinking. He managed to get onto a plank of wood. All he had on him was his money, which was attached to him. His books went and sank in the water. When he got to an island, he asked there, "Do you have expert divers who might be able to dive in and find the books?" They said, "Yes, we do." They managed to find those books. But when the divers came back, they gave him the books, and they forcefully took the money, the gold off him. Right? They forcefully took his gold off him, because they knew he's desperate. He wanted the books desperately. So they were like, "Okay, give us more. And they kept taking more and more. And then when he got his books, he got happy and he rejoiced. And people of the island, they thought, "Well, that's weird. They took all his gold off him and gave him the books, and he's happy." And he said, "This is my real treasure in the books." So it shows the connection of the people who made a contribution to Islam, the connection that they had to knowledge over the worldly things as well. When he died, his casket was carried by the king of Egypt, yeah, and the princes and the judges, and all of Cairo. They say only a munafiq or a kafir at the time didn't attend his janazah. Every Muslim attended his janazah. The next person we've included, I think most of us are from India, Pakistan. We're in India now. Shah Waliullah from Delhi, right? Muhaddis Delhi, yes, Muhaddis Delhi. So again, we've got another genius on our hands here. When he started to, at a very young age, his father was the leader of the institution where he was, and he basically, at the age of 7, he became a hafiz of the Quran. At the age of 7 years old. And then at the age of 14, he graduated from what we now would say university, the madrasa at the time. He had graduated from that. Imagine seeing a graduate from university at the age of 14 today, right? So at the age of 15, his father got him married. At the age of 16, his father passed away, and he was in charge of the entire university as like the dean, main professor, right? When his father died, the people of the university, madrasa, they said that you are qualified to take your father's position. At the age of 16, he was a student there only 2 years before that. It shows how much of an expert he was. At the time in India, though, a lot of hadith and stuff were still making their way through, and there was certain type of knowledge which hadn't got to India. Shah Waliullah, when he went at the age of about 30, he went on Hajj. When he went on Hajj, he saw the people, the scholars obviously, all of them come together in Makkah and Medina, right? So he saw the scholars of Makkah and Medina. There he started learning for about 3 years. He learned there. He said, "There's so much knowledge here, I'm just going to stay here." He decided to just stay in Makkah forever. But after 3 years, in 3 years, he learnt, they say he went through all of the knowledge in Makkah so fast and taking it all in as well. So he went through Fath al-Bari of Ibn Hajar and Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, or he went through all the fiqh learning as well. And After that, after 3 years when he had completed it all, what happened is he saw the Prophet ﷺ in a dream. And the Prophet ﷺ in the dream gave him a pen. And he took the pen in the dream and he didn't know what it meant. He didn't know what that meant. So he woke up, he asked the ulama, what does this mean? They confirmed from the description that it was the Prophet ﷺ. But they were not sure what it meant as well. So in one or 2 weeks, he was very worried as to what this means, because if the Prophet ﷺ comes in your dream, it's such a great thing, right? And then after about 1 or 2 weeks, he saw a person in the dream, and he said, who are you? He said, I'm Hassan bin Ali, the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, radiyallahu ta'ala an. And Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala an said to him that, why did you not listen to the command of my grandfather? And Shah Waliullah said, because I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know. If I knew, I would follow it. And he said, he was telling you that the knowledge that you learnt, take it back to India where it's needed. Yeah? So he woke up, he said, that's it, I'm going back. I'm going back to India now. And when he got up, he got his family ready. He told the ulama, I'm going. The ulama said, don't go back, because at the time, Aurangzeb had died a long time ago. India was in turmoil. There was fighting, killing. There was a lot of corruption, not least in the religion. And then he still said, if the Prophet ﷺ told me to go, I'm going to go. So he went back to India. And when he went there, he noticed that one of the biggest problems was that people didn't have this connection with the Quran. So he said, how do we make a connection? Because teaching the people Arabic is hard, right? So obviously he started teaching the people the hadith that he learnt and everything else, but he did a translation of the Quran, yeah? And the first translation, I think it's the first translation ever done in Persian, and it's definitely, he did the first translation in Urdu, right? And we've got it right there, the Persian translation just behind you there. The brown book there, we've got it there for you to have a look at afterwards as well, yeah? He was nearly killed for writing that. They tried to kill him for that, right? Because he was taking away certain people's ideas. And he, again, is accepted by pretty much all of the Sunni scholars of India, whichever sect they come from. They will accept the works, and they link back to Shah Waliullah. So if you go to many ulama and you ask for their sanad in hadith, you will see Shah Waliullah's name in many scholars, because of the amount of dedication of teaching that he had. The next person, so this is, if they've got any children, wake up, because this is going to be interesting. So this sounds more like a Hollywood movie. Do you want to come forward a bit so the people behind can... This one, honestly, it's going to sound more like a Hollywood movie than anything from history, right? This guy, his name is Thomas Keith. He was a Scottish person. He's born in Edinburgh. When he was born in Edinburgh, he very early on, he joined the army, the British Army. When he joined the British Army, he went on to 4 battles outside of England. Yeah. In the 4th battle, he was captured by the Egyptian army. Yeah. And the Egyptian army captured him. He became a prisoner of war. When he saw that these people, the way they're treating me is amazing, because a prisoner of war, usually they don't get rights, but the Muslims were treating him so well. He said, what is this? What is this religion? He had another Scottish guy with him. He said, who are these people? What is this religion that they've got? So he started asking his guards and the people around, what do they do? Why are they praying? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And then he understood Islam and he accepted Islam. And he changed his name to Ibrahim. Obviously, he named Ibrahim Aga. There's a history behind the Aga part as well, meaning that he's from out, I think. Now, unfortunately, soon after, there was a raid. On the prison, and some people came in and kidnapped people from the prison, and he was one of the people that were kidnapped, and they sold him into slavery. So now he becomes a slave. So look at his journey: Edinburgh, British Army. Now he's in the jail. Now he becomes a slave, right? His master's name was Ahmad. He was treated well during this period, considering being a slave. And unfortunately, one day someone challenged him to a duel. So a duel is when we say, either you kill me or I kill you. We will fight to the death, right? That's what a duel is. So somebody challenged him to a duel, and so unfortunately he had to have that fight. He managed to kill the person he was fighting, but when he killed him, he got worried that the family would come back and kill him. So he went to the Emir, the leader of Egypt. He went to his wife, the wife of the Emir, and he said, I'm scared for my life. Can you do something for me? She said, my son is the governor of Medina. She said her son is the governor of Medina. She said, go to Medina and see whether you can serve him in Medina. So he went off to Medina now, right? When he got to Medina, the governor of Medina said, why don't you join the Ottoman army? So now he joined the Ottoman army. So British army, Egyptian army, and then Ottoman army. When he joined the Ottoman army, he went through the ranks very fast. He rose and rose and rose. He was very dedicated. In 1812, he became the treasurer of Medina. So all the gold from the Ottoman Empire would go through his hands to the people of Medina. Right? That's a massive station. In the year 1815, the governor of Medina, his name is Tucson. I don't know how you pronounce that, but I'm just reading in English. Tucson had to go out of Medina. He was the governor of Medina. He said, I have to leave Medina. And while I go, I need to nominate somebody as the governor, as an interim governor. When he left, he made Thomas Keith the interim governor of Medina. On his journey, the governor passed away. He was killed. So the people of Medina got together and decided that Thomas Keith would become the actual governor of Medina. So he became the governor, and he died as the governor of Medina. So he went from born in Scotland. So this is interesting for two reasons. One is the fact that he was born in Scotland, joined the British army, gets caught as a prisoner of war, becomes a slave, becomes Ottoman army, becomes the governor of Medina. The second reason it's interesting, it shows the justice in Islam. There's no racism. He was a white person, right? He was not just a white person. He had just been a slave just a few years ago. Yet he still became the governor of Medina. And it shows in the Western world, for example, you have to be from aristocracy. You have to be from a family. You have to have that, like even in our culture, in Pakistan and India, we have the family and the Zaat, Baat and all of that. Yet he was a slave and he became the governor of Medina, of such an important city. Yeah. So we included that because of the Medina link there. And I think that's quite an epic story. So coming on to this guy here, his name is Lord Henry Stanley. A lot of people think that Lord Nazir was the first Muslim lord in the House of Lords. It's not true. Lord Henry Stanley was the first Muslim in the House of Lords. He was born in the year 1827. At a very young age, he started taking an interest in Arabic. When he learned Arabic, he was able to read Arabic books. And he became very interested in Islam. His family was very big. His brother, for example, used to work with the Viceroy of India. So they were the rulers of India. He asked his father to be stationed in the Ottoman Empire so that he could actually see, how Muslims function. He went off there, and his grandmother became worried. She said, don't send him to the Ottoman Empire because he is liable to take the color of those he lives with, meaning he seems to like Islam a lot. He might convert. Yeah. And her words came true. He converted. In the year 1850s, somewhere in the 1850s, he converted to Islam. And he wrote a letter to his father saying, Dad, I want to convert to Islam. His father got very angry and he said, you dare convert to Islam? Islam is, I'm just finding the thing. Muslims are semi-barbarians, stupid, illiterate, ignorant, tyrannical, oppressive, and they follow an absurd religion. Yeah. This is the opposition he was facing, and he's finding the truth to be the complete opposite. His father saying this, his sister saying to him that, this is, why are you converting? His mother's complaining to him. So he comes back in 1858, he quickly comes to England and he leaves, doesn't meet anyone, right? Nobody knows where he's going, but he writes his grandmother a letter. He said, I'm going to Jeddah for a rest. Who goes to Jeddah for a rest? Nobody. He was actually going to Makkah, right? So she understood as well, and she said, you dare go to Makkah. He said, don't worry, I won't go. So he told a little lie there. And then he dressed up as a Turk, in the garb of a Turk. And he looked and the people who saw him said, wow, he just looks like a Turk, like from the Ottoman Empire. Because he was white-skinned as well, and they are as well. And then he went to Makkah. He stayed there for many months. But then somebody spotted him and they said, you know what, I know you. I've seen you before. You are part of this, you are Lord Henry Stanley, right? So he told somebody who got to the papers, and all of a sudden they wrote it in the newspapers of England that a lord of of England was spotted in Mecca, right? And when his mother saw this, she became furious. She wrote a letter to him saying, you better come back to England dressed as an Englishman, which he did because we listen to our parents in Islam when they tell us something which doesn't contradict Islam. And then he came back. He then stayed here. He wrote many books and stuff. But the important thing is this: when he passed away, his friends who were close to him towards the end of his life said that he used to pray 5 times a day, and he used to wake up for tahajjud. So more than most of us would do after so much opposition. And not only that, but he died on the 25th night of Ramadan, potentially a night of Laylatul Qadr. So that's very, very interesting that somebody who faces so much opposition, and we face no opposition in Islam. We're born into it. Yeah, we inherited it, and we have no respect for it. Yet people had to fight for it. The next person we've got here, her name is Lady Evelyn. Her book is over there. It's the green one. It's quite interesting. She converted to Islam very early on as well. Now, lady means she's the wife of a lord. Yeah? And what happened with her was that she learnt about Islam when she was very young, and she loved it. She never converted early on, but when she met the Pope once, when she met the Pope asked her, are you a Catholic? And she said, no, I'm a Muslim. And her family went, what? Since when? Right? And then she said to her family, she said, look, ever since I heard about this religion, Islam, it really touched me, and I want to convert. So eventually she converted, and when she was over 60 years old, she went on Hajj, and her whole account of Hajj is there in the green book. And the interesting thing is that we have a debate in the UK right now about niqab in the UK and the burqa ban and this and that. She's wearing niqab in the 1930s, and there's a picture of her in there as well, wearing niqab. So that's quite interesting, being a lady. The next person is interesting because of a weird coincidence. This person, his name is Robert Stanley. He was a poor merchant. I know we talk about quite rich people there. He was a poor tea merchant. He eventually became the mayor of his city, which is near Manchester. Then he became mayor again, so he became mayor twice. Now, the thing here is this: when he passed away, when he retired at the age of 69 years old, he converted to Islam. And then he used to make a journey to Liverpool to pray Jummah every week. It was very difficult for him. From what we know, he didn't go on Hajj. The key thing is this: when he died, his family covered up that he was a Muslim, because they used to try to cover it up, and because they saw it as some sort of bad thing. Yeah, when they covered it up, there was no record left that he was ever a Muslim, except a few things here and there. Yeah. So what happened was when his record was deleted, but his great grandson in 1999, his great grandson said he wanted to look into the family history. His name is Brian, still alive. He wanted to look into the family history, and he found a topi, the red ones, the red sort of what they call fez. Yeah, he found one of them, and his great grandson was like, "Whose is this? Right? Why is this?" So he looked more and more in, and he found somebody referred to as Brother Rashid by a person called William Quilliam, who's quite popular, one of the first converts as well. And Brother Rashid, this. Then he found out that he was a Muslim. The reason that's interesting for Brian is Brian's son had converted to Islam 9 years ago. Yeah? And he converted in April 1898. 1898 in April. 100 years exactly to that date, his great grandson, without knowing who he is, went on Hajj. So we included this to show that no matter what anyone does, you can't extinguish guidance and the light of Allah. It doesn't get extinguished. Yeah. So when we go to Manchester, his great granddaughter and grandson are going to come to the exhibition as well. Stephen, his name is, he's converted to Islam. He's an MP for Labour Party as well now, right? So they're alive, and now they know the story. This person, Irene Wentworth Fitzwilliam, her book had opened it to the page there of of her story of when she went on Hajj. She comes from the upper echelons of British society. At 19 years old, she debuts into British society at Buckingham Palace at a party thrown by the King and Queen. And her family lineage, which we've included here, as you can see, her father is an MP, her grandfather is an Earl, her great-grandfather is an Earl, from this side, Countess. Grandmother's a countess. Then you got earls there. You got marquises, earls, lady. Her grandmother was lady in waiting to the Saxe Coburg and Gotha household, which was linked to the royal household, right? So as upper class as you can get, right? And she converted to Islam, and she went on Hajj in 1933, and she included an account which we've got there, and she said that if you want peace in the world, go and look at Arafat. And look at the peace that there is in Arafat. So you can read her account there as well. And she used to throw an Eid party every year after Ramadan for the few Muslims that were present in England at the time. Okay, next. We're not nearly at the end of this part. Now, Leopold Weiss he's born an Austrian-Hungarian Jew. He was born into a Jewish family, yeah? And when he was 25 years old, he had been reading about Islam for ages. He knew loads of languages, right? He was an expert at languages. And he converted to Islam at the age of 25. When he converted, he faced lots of opposition. So what he did was, he thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and live in Makkah. End of story, right? So he went off, he started living in Makkah. He lived in Makkah for 6 years. He did 5 Hajj during that time, yeah? And he became close to the secretary of the king, King Abdulaziz, right? And because of that, he became close to the king as well. And the king sent him on a few secret missions as well. But during the 30s, Allama Iqbal, who many of us will know from India and Pakistan's history, Allama Iqbal went there and he met him. And Allama Iqbal said to him, we're making a country called Pakistan, and we need people like you to come on board and help us to make this country called Pakistan. So he then moved on 14th of August 1947, the day Pakistan was made. He became one of the first citizens of Pakistan, having been born as an Austrian-Hungarian Jew, having become a Saudi Arabian, and then he became a Pakistani. And then he served for many years in the Middle Eastern Division, Pakistan's envoy to United Nations. He went into government. He also then, at the end of his life, when he retired, he went to Spain, and he only returned once when Zia ul-Haq wrote the new constitution of Pakistan. He went back to review it. But when he died, he was buried in Spain, in the graveyard where they used to be buried in the time of the peak of Islam. The next person I think is probably more well known than anybody that we've heard about is Malcolm X, and we've got his autobiography there. Malcolm X, as we know, converted to the cult we know as the Nation of Islam, who believed that black people are better than white people, and this was in reaction to the racism in America at the time, where they used to say that white people are better than black people, right? And then he saw that his false prophet Elijah Muhammad had lied to them. When he noticed that this prophet is a false prophet, he started looking into true Islam. When he looked into true Islam, he saw the truth, he converted, and then he went straight on Hajj. And he talks here about how on Hajj, black, brown, white, everybody's equal. He talks about that in his book, and he says that if you want racism gone from the world, you need to follow the way Islam looks at race relations. And then unfortunately, because he started saying some really nice stuff, somebody assassinated him very soon on. But his book's there, we can read. The next person, probably the elders don't know who I'm talking about. Hopefully the young guys do. This guy, Tupac's Outlaws, yeah. So that's Tupac Shakur there, who used to be a rapper. He was gunned down and killed. This guy here, his name's Napoleon. He was part of his name Mutabil, but he was nicknamed Napoleon. He was part of we're talking about gang culture, gangsters, rapping, always carrying weapons with them. He, at the age of 3 years old.
She died. She died.
Yeah, it's talking about his mum.
His mum died.
Yeah, so at the age of 3 years old, because of the gang warfare that used to go on at the time, his father and his mother both were gunned down in front of him while he was 3 years old watching this, right? And his brothers as well were there as well, right? His mother and father were gunned down in front of him. His mother had a lot of strength. She tried to save them. She put them into cabinets and drawers so that they don't kill them, right? But it took 13 bullets to kill her, right? And he watched this. So he grew up as an orphan, and at the age of 12, obviously, because he was living in the hood, at the age of 12, he was selling drugs, right? But he had this skill to rap, which is like, for the elders, it's like a type of singing, right? So then he met Tupac, and when he told Tupac the story about his mother, Tupac started crying, right? And we see them as hard people, but he started crying. Eventually, when Tupac was unfortunately killed, again, back to that gang lifestyle, what happened with Muta is he was about to have a fight with another guy, and this Muslim guy got in between them and he broke it up, and he said no, right? And he broke it, made everybody calm, and then he said to them, he said, you know what, come to the masjid. And Muta says, I felt like I was obliged to him, right? I felt like I had this obligation to him to go to the masjid. So he went to the masjid because the person who had killed him was Nation of Islam. He never knew the difference between Islam and Nation of Islam. They both got the word Islam in there, right? So he was like, I hate Islam, right? So he went to the masjid and he saw all these people. He went there in this big fat car at the time coming from his huge house, which was private, locked off with private gates with his private road. He had money, fame, everything, right? And he rolls up in his car, right? And he looks at the masjid and there's poor people, all poor people, right? And they're all smiling and they're hugging each other and laughing and joking and they're all happy. And he noticed that straight away. He was like, all these people are happy. Yeah, I've got everything and I'm not happy, right? So this struck him. So he went inside and he started becoming inquisitive. His friend showed him how to do sajda. And he said, do sajda like this. And once your head is down there on the ground, you ask Allah for whatever you want, right? Because you're talking to him. So he went down into sajda. And when he went into sajda, he said he felt a massive peace, something he'd never felt in his life ever. And when he felt that peace, he knew, I need to research this. In 2001, end of 2001, he converted to Islam. 2002, sorry, he converted to Islam. The same year, he said, you know what? And he'd been reading about the Kaaba and stuff before that, and he said, I want to go on Hajj. He went on Hajj the same year, and now he lives in Medina, and he's made a video for us. So I'm just going to play the video that he made. He just sent it to me right now. We haven't got it. We're going to have it on an iPad, but I'm just going to play it now. We're going to have it on iPad, but he literally just WhatsApped it to me now.
Welcome to Hajj Exhibition. My name is Mutabil, and I hope you guys enjoyed the exhibition. Alhamdulillah, all praise due to Allah for guiding me to the religion of Islam. I accepted the religion of Islam 16 years ago. And one of the first things that I wanted to do was to visit the holy lands of Mecca, Medina. A few months after accepting the religion of Islam, I was honored and I was able to travel to Mecca and Medina for Hajj pilgrimage. When I got to Mecca, I was amazed when I seen the Kaaba. Words couldn't explain, words cannot express my feeling when I first laid eyes on the Kaaba, because I was reading about the Kaaba in the books and the stories of the Prophet, and it changed my life. It changed my life. I went back to America as a different person by Allah's permission. And I advise everyone to go to Hajj if they're able to. If you have the money and you have the health, to go to Hajj as soon as possible. Thanks once again, and may Allah allow all of us to experience the Hajj pilgrimage and accept it from us.
So this just talks about the history of Mecca and the Kaaba. This is the first ever drawing, from what we can find, the first ever drawing of Masjid Haram and Medina. And you can see the Gumbad there as well, which looks a bit different, maybe because of the artist, I don't know, right? But that's the first ever depiction of Medina. Now, here what we've got here, we've got good sunlight. You can see the black stone. So the black stone is called Hijr al-Aswad. It's on the corner next to the door of the Kaaba, yeah? Yeah? So what we've got here is a very clear picture of that as well. So what we've tried to do, it's coming a bit loose here, but I'm going to show you where the Hijr al-Aswad is. Unfortunately, it's in 7 pieces. I'm going to show you the 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So if you ever have the amazing opportunity, which I've never had, of kissing Hajj al-Aswad, then look out for that. Don't kiss that. Yeah, kiss the stones. The reason it's in pieces is because it was, unfortunately, there's a lot of problems that have gone on with Hajj al-Aswad. Many people don't know this, but for over 20 years, it was stolen. It was stolen by these people called the Karamita, right? They were a shoot-off of Ismaili Shiism, who basically, they weren't Ismaili Shias, don't take that wrong. They were a shoot-off of them, right? And they became very extreme in the way that they were. They had an army, a huge army. They sacked Makkah. They killed 20,000 Hujjaj and put their bodies in the well of Zamzam in order to defile Zamzam. Then they took Hajj al-Aswad and they put it on top of filth, and they took it out and they took it away. And they said, we want to disrespect Islam as much as we can. And for over 20 years, it was in this state. And then one of the Abbasi rulers, he managed to purchase it back for a very, very large sum of money. Yeah. So Hajj al-Aswad has been through a lot. There's a rumor that a British guy by the name of Richard went on here. He pretended to convert to Islam. There's a rumor that he went there and he managed to cut out a piece, and that piece is in the British Museum. We can't verify this story or not, but that's a rumor that does go around. What color was the kiswa in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? White. We got white. Any others? Green. Okay. Any other contenders? The cloth on the Kaaba. Red. We got red. White. Black. Any more? Yellow. Molana, do you know? No. It was Burd Yamani. The cloth was Burd Yamani, and it was white with red stripes on it. So it was white and red, right? Which we've shown. has that there. Obviously, it didn't look like that, but
First yellow, then
no, we just put random ones there. So we showed that for illustration purposes. We showed that there, that it was red and white. And then in the time of Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, it became white. Yeah, so you became right there. No, it wasn't black. No, it wasn't black at all. Then in the time of Abdullah bin Zubair, by the way, made it bigger. We're going to have a look at what I mean by bigger. And when he made it bigger, he made it red as well. Right? So it became red. So whoever said red got it right as well. And it became yellow for a certain period of time as well, like a yellowy gold. And once someone made it green, so you got it right as well, it has been green. But nobody liked the green for some reason, right? So they went to the Khalifa and they said, please, can you change it? So he changed it to black and everyone went, wow. Because it hadn't been black before, right? And everybody loved black. Everybody loved the black. So it stayed black since then. Yeah, hundreds of years it stayed black now. Right, the design in there has changed, and one other thing is that the other thing that's changed about the kiswa is how many times it changes. So it changes yearly at the moment, but before they used to do is they didn't used to change it. They used to just put one on, put a new one on, right? And then one of the Khalifas, he noticed that the Kaaba was under a lot of stress from all the weight of many cloths over the years. So he made the decision that one at a time. Yeah, you have to take the old one off, and the new one has to go on. Right, Umar radiallahu anhu used to do something funny. Like we've got the kiswa on display and everything, right? Umar used to, when he used to take the Kaaba off, he used to change it, right? When he used to he used to cut it and give it to all the Hujjaj and say, use it as a head covering to protect yourself from the sun, like an umbrella. Yeah. So that's it's interesting how we value something so much, and they were like, oh, this is a good head covering, right? And in the time of Muawiyah and Abdullah radiallahu anhu and Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu anhu, it was changed twice a year. There was one Khalifa who used to change it 3 times a year. On the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, he made it one color. On 29th of Ramadan, he made it one color. And then he made it another color. So he would change it many times. So it's gone through a lot of history like that as well. That was the rotten old wood that is shown in Makkah Museum. Yeah. That was the one of the pillars of the Kaaba, and this shows them digging really deep into the foundations of the Kaaba there. I've included this picture here which shows stripes on the Kaaba, and if you come around here, I'm just going to show you some other things as well. So in the time of coming onto the Kiswa, in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, there was no Kiswa on the Kaaba. Yeah, there was no Kiswa at that time on the Kaaba. The Kiswa, by the way, the first person to put the Kiswa on the Kaaba, his name was Tubba. Yeah, he, just like Abraha, who went to destroy the Kaaba, Tubba wanted to destroy the Kaaba as well. He went out, and when he got close to Makkah, he became extremely ill, right? And he thought to himself, you know what? There's something about this intention that I had which was bad, which is why I've become so ill, right? So what he did is he changed his intention and headed back. Then he said, I'm going to try this. So Tubba, what he did is he tried to change his attention. He said, this time I'm going to go to the Kaaba, not try to destroy it. This time I'm going to go to the Kaaba and I'm going to honor it. And he was fine. He managed to get there. So a few hundred years before the Prophet ﷺ, he's the first person who put a cloth on the Kaaba. He said, I'm going to honor the Kaaba. And obviously if you clothe something, you honor it. So he put the cloth on the Kaaba, and that's where the Kiswa started. So the first ever account by any European of Hajj is from a Hajj done in around about the 1500s, probably around about 1475. Yeah, and this was by a Portuguese guy called Divathima. He converted to Islam, but his conversion wasn't true. He didn't truly convert to Islam. He was pretending, yeah, just to go on Hajj, just to see what it's like. Yeah, and he converted out when he got back. He wrote his first account there. Again, we've got an account here of a guy called Joseph Pitts. He was the first Englishman who wrote an account of Hajj. He went in the year 1675. Yeah, so again, very, very early on. This guy, he was captured as a slave, and he says he was forced to convert to Islam. And when he was forced to convert to Islam, his boss was very bad to him. He forced him to convert to Islam. The third master took him on Hajj with him. And when his master took him on Hajj, when he returned to England eventually, he wrote about what he saw on Hajj. Very, very interesting that it was exactly the same journey we take today. But he says he's forced to convert, which is a very odd thing, because at the time, Islam was at the pinnacle of justice at the time, right? If you force someone to convert in those, so not the Ottomans, whoever they were at the time, if they were forced to convert, that would have caused a massive problem. A massive problem. In fact, the slave could go to the Qadi, to the judge and say, this, he did this, and he would get punished for it. So it seems odd that he converted. What historians say more likely is he did truly convert to Islam. When he got back to England at the time, and in England at the time, there was so much propaganda against Islam. The bishops, the priests, everybody was saying it's a religion of Satan. They're Satanists, we should kill them. So it's likely he feared for his own life and said, oh yeah, I was force converted to Islam. So maybe there's an excuse for him. This guy, he fake converted to Islam as well. 1877, he went on Hajj. He truly converted to Islam. In 1814, he went on Hajj and he died out in Arabia as well. This is the guy I mentioned before, Eldon Rutter. The one, there's a whole discussion whether he was Muslim or not. And that's his account. He has an account on him going inside the Kaaba, him doing loads of things like that. So that's quite interesting. There's a book I wanted to include from 1704. It's printed in 1847. It shows the history of the Saracens. This is what they used to call Muslims. They used to call them Saracens. And it goes into fiqh, it goes into seerah, it goes into a lot of detail. And it shows that, there was a massive desire in the West to learn about Islam and to find out what this exotic religion is. There's the postcard from 1906 with a photograph from 1899 on there of Masjid al-Aqsa. Okay, last part, guys. Hopefully you're still awake. Okay, a lot of people go on Hajj and Umrah and everything. So if you guys want to just move across like that, right? So you guys can come in as well, right? So when we go to Medina, we give salam to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a place where it says huna or hina, that the Prophet here gives salam to the Prophet. We say salam there. Then we go and say salam to Abu Bakr and then Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum. And I wanted to show, so we made this graphic to show what's actually behind the gate that we see, because nobody's allowed behind the gate unless there's an exception or there's something, right? So I wanted to show what's there, right? So where you say salam there, yeah, there it's in line with the head of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. Then you go down and near the feet of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the head of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, and that's there. The next place you say salam, and then again further down towards his feet is Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and that's where we say salam to them. So next time you're there and you're saying salam, know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face is facing that direction as well, exactly where you're saying salam. Yeah. And I also wanted to include what's behind that, right? So let's go right into the sacred chamber itself. Inside there is a room, and there's a wall which was made very early on. The interesting thing about that wall is when they were digging for its foundations, about many years after the Prophet ﷺ, right? Only some of the Sahaba were left alive at the time, right? They dug, and they got down to build some foundations, and they saw 2 feet. Yeah, and they said, you know what? Somebody's buried this person in the morning. Look, they are fresh feet. They've still got color on them. Like we have color, yeah, red color. They still got color. That means the person's not been dead for long. It seems they thought somebody must have died and thought while they're doing the renovation, quickly bury one of their relatives. They thought this. So they called, in Arab culture, like we have fingerprints, they used to look at people's feet. So they called somebody to come and look at the feet. They said, come and have a look. Who is this? The people came, they said, we've never seen feet like this ever. So this was odd. So they asked elders, they said, have you ever seen feet like this? They said no. So they went to the few Sahaba who were left. They said, do you know whose feet they are? And one of the Sahaba, he came and he said, I swear by Allah, they are the feet of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, who had been dead for years and years. And his feet were as if he had just been buried this morning. And that shows that the people who are like that, their bodies don't decay. Yeah. And that wall was built at that time. Then you've got this room that goes around. Yeah, there's a room that goes around, which you haven't shown there because it would get too crowded, right? There's a room that goes around there with a roof on there, which has a wooden roof, like on the ceiling. It's a flat wooden roof. There's no door that goes in. There's a manhole that goes in from the top, right? So if you imagine the manhole goes in from here, the Rasulullah's grave is over there. Yeah, and if somebody was to go in, they would go down there, they would get onto a ledge, they would go down, and then they would see the grave of Rasulullah, right? If you climb out of there and you're on the wooden ledge, and you come out of there, then there is actually only one way into that section as well. So on top of that wall and wooden ceiling, there is another wall with a dome on it. Not the green dome, just a small dome made out of black stone, right? And at the top of that dome, there's a manhole, again, to go in. That's the only way in. So 2 walls don't have any doors to them to go in. They've only got manholes to go from the top. You'd need a ladder from the dome. Once you go out of there, then you come into this wall here made by Umar bin Abdul Aziz. And you got this wall. Actually, Nuruddin Zengi. Sorry, the dome was made by Nuruddin Zengi. So that's that wall there. It is included. Yeah. Nuruddin Zengi made the foundations really wide. Yeah. Reason being because somebody tried to steal the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So he made it really, really thick so nobody can get in. And again, as I said, make it really difficult to go up there and get in. So nobody can get in. Yeah. Then Umar bin Abdul Aziz had made a wall as well with this weird shape, so that people, there's two reasons people started doing some funny business where they, obviously people, they don't know, right? They've just been to Makkah, they've done tawaf around the Kaaba, and the bricks that were used are very similar to the bricks used in the Kaaba. So some people, obviously not knowing, they started doing tawaf around the grave, right? Because they used to look at the bricks and think, oh, okay, and they would do tawaf around that. So he made it into a very weird shape there, so that doesn't happen. Eventually, the Ottomans came, actually no, I think it's before the Ottomans, and then they made this massive chamber all the way around with what we see as the jalia and the railings today, and the green dome on top of that, right? So that's more recent history. Yeah. So now you know what's behind there. And I forgot to mention when we were talking about Ibrahim alayhis salam, when the expansion was done in 1995, they dug up and they found the foundation stones of the Kaaba, right? When they were doing this, so they dug down and they found the foundation stones of the Kaaba. I spoke to one of the muftis of Makkah myself, who was there at the time, and he was overseeing it because he's a historian as well. He says that we saw with our own eyes, we saw the foundations are like this. Yeah, he says we saw this with our own eyes. The significance of that is the foundation stones that were laid by Ibrahim alayhis salam. We know what they were like. Reason being, Abdullah bin Zubayr, when he dug it up, the Sahaba who were alive at the time, they saw that the foundations did this, in this, like a camel's hump, yeah, like that. And when they saw it, the Sahaba said, the Prophet ﷺ told us, these are the foundation stones laid by Ibrahim alayhis salam, still there. And when in 1995, when they dug it up, they saw the same foundation stones. So the Kaaba today stands on the same foundations laid by Ibrahim alayhis salam.